Hi, thanks for turning into this video. Hope you enjoy it. Today we're going to take this piece of natural Kingman turquoise and turn it into this pendant. And I'm going to walk you through all the steps I do to take it. I don't pretend to be a professional, but I do the best I can. Maybe you'll learn something. If you want to see how I cut the stones, I have this other video. You can see it right here, and you can take a look at that on my channel. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Natural Kingman turquoise is very beautiful if you can get it. Anyway, step one, we're going to make the bezel. Making a little bit of a fancy bezel here. It's going to be castellated. That means that it's going to have grooves cut in it, so the bezel itself kind of looks like battlements of an old castle. Well, to do that, I'm taking some 18 gauge sterling silver sheet. There you could see me mark the thickness that I want to make it, and then I went ahead and put a magic marker on it to make it easier for cutting out. And here we go, cutting through it. And as you know, if you've used a jeweler saw, it can take a while and maybe a couple of saw blades. But we got through it just fine. However, it's a little bit uneven, so I'm going to put it in the vise, use a couple of popsicle sticks to guard the silver from getting scratched up from the jaws and just even things out. All right, once we've got that all set, I'm going to place my bezel strip in a tool that I got from Brandvik Tools on Etsy, and it's specifically for making castellated bezels. What's nice about it is that it has the jaws that will hold it for you, and then it has a die on the left you see me holding that is specifically notched to give me a perfect distance each time, and it works out very well. Took a little bit of practice to get good at it, but not much. And I really like it. Now, of course, you can do this on your own if you want to mark each one yourself. You can certainly do that. Take a little bit more time, but I like this. All right, so there we have it. Pretty equal. So now I am getting ready. I'm going to heat it up. Put some flux on it to keep it from burning, but now I'm going to heat it up because what I want to do is anneal it. Right now it's pretty hard. It comes hard, and then working it gets it even harder. So I'm going to heat it up to almost a cherry red and then immediately dunk it. And what that does, it lets all the silver atoms reset, and then it'll become much easier to bend around the stone, as you see here. So now we're going to bend it around, and we're going to mark it to the correct length, and then we'll go ahead and cut it and double check it to make sure that we got it exactly where we want it to be. I'm going to go ahead and use my 10 snips here because I'm leaving a little bit extra, and then we're going to file it down till we get it exactly where we want it to be. And that's going to take some trial and error, but make sure you get everything square, the edge is clean, and get it to be the right size. I had to take that off and file it a few times to get it right. Okay, so there's my edge. I'm going to put a little pallion of hard silver solder down, and then I'm going to set the edge right down so that both sides of the edge are touching the solder. Going to flux it up, and then we're going to heat it. I've learned this past year better to use a little bit more flame and heat than you need than a little too little. Everything will just go more if you come in with overwhelming firepower as it is. So that heated up, it went good, so back into the pickle, and then we'll rinse the pickle off with fresh water, and we'll move on. I'm going to make sure that it fits the stuff, and then do any final adjustments as we need to. Okay, that's just a hair large, but that's okay. That's going to work for what we're doing here. Now that we have the bezel that'll actually hold the stone, we're going to get into adornment. And in this case, I'm going to use some triangle wire to set around it. I cut it to a little bit longer than I need, and then once again we're going to anneal it because this is going to be a pain to shape the way we want it. Triangle is just naturally unstable, but annealing it really does help. Okay, so now that we have it annealed, we're going to come in and we're going to twist it. If you've ever dealt with triangle wire before, you'll know because it's annealed, it's twisting fairly easily around it. But as it twists, the triangle is actually twisting along its axis as well. So it's not lying as flat as it did when we started. And we're going to deal with that as we go along. Use whatever tool you need to. Just try to be conscious. You don't want to put too many nicks into the edges. But you're going to see that I have a few nicks, and we'll deal with them as we go along. And you might have to anneal it a second time to get where you want it to be, because the more you work it, the more it's going to get work hardened again, and you'll need to go back in and relax those silver molecules, silver atoms. And you can see there how the bottom of it has twisted up. So I'm taking my various pliers, trying to get it back into shape as best I can. But no matter what, we're going to end up with an uneven bottom surface, which we'll deal with here in a bit. First, we're going to get it to size. So you can feel pretty good about yourself once you get it to that. And then we're not going to use snips here because that would just crush too much of the silver, make it too hard to join. So we're going to go back to the jeweler saw and cut it. If you do what I do here, try to cut both at the same so that you get a precise, good angle on both sides. Just make sure to leave an extra little bit, just enough to account for the saw blade's width. Otherwise, if you had it too perfect, it's going to come out a little bit tight. All right, so here we are. Now it becomes important where we got to at least get those two ends lined up so that they are even with each other on the bottom and then on the top and the sides. So once you do that, we can use a little bit bigger piece. Once again, hard solder because this is being soldered by itself, and then lay it down so that the two edges of the joint are both touching the solder. And then make sure that everything is fluxed up really well. And go back in and apply your overwhelming heat. Keep it moving and then focus on both sides where you want it to go. And right there, just like magic, it is done. Okay, so now we're going to check the fit. Somehow, it always seems to change just a little bit in the cutting and soldering process. Fortunately, we have a fairly good fit. It's not perfect, but we will take care of that in a moment. We're going to bring out the file. We're going to file down the joint, trying to, get any excess flux off. And we're going to file down in any of the burrs or mars that we put on it while we were trying to shape it. Additionally, I'm going to file off the inside just a little bit, just to make sure that the bezel and stone fit perfectly inside. And we're going to cover that up in the next step, so don't worry about that. Okay, things are looking okay here, but now I want to flatten out that bottom so that we can make sure that we have a nice, good, even fit when we go on to the next step. I do have a flat lap that I made. That would have made this a little bit easier, but hey, I wanted to show it using a file as well. All right, so once I'm happy that I got the bottom pretty well, I'm going to go back, take my mallet, and just flatten it out to make sure that the bottom is flat, because we don't want it twisted when we go to solder it to the back plate. My final step just before I move to the back plate is I'm going to put everything, the stone, the bezel, and the adornment, and then I'm going to put it on some sandpaper and make sure that everything is sanded flush and clean, so that I won't have any problems when we move to the back plate. And here we are. We're at the next step, and this is adding the back plate itself. So I like to clean the silver before I cut it, just makes it easier. So I got my green pad, scuffed it up. Now I'm going to mark it and then snip it out. making sure that the stone still fits and that I didn't snip it a little bit too close, and we are good to go. I'm going to add my maker's mark and my sterling silver mark to the back now. And then once I do that, I'm going to take the hammer and we're going to flatten it out. Make sure that we have a nice flat back for the next step. So here I'm going to use medium solder because I'm going to be soldering pieces that have already been soldered once with hard solder. So we're going to go for a lower melting point of medium so that I lessen the risk of melting my previous joints. So we're going to cut some pieces out, about 8 in this case. We'll put 3 or 4 on the inside of the bezel, and we'll put about 4 on the outside of the adornment, the triangle. I add the flux first so that I'm actually setting the medium solder into the flux, making sure that everything is coated well. The first part of soldering is always to boil off the flux itself, and your solder will jump around, so you use your titanium pick to kind of keep everything back in place. Once the flux has boiled away, it'll hold the solder in place and make everything a little bit easier. But now we are going in with that overwhelming force, and we're trying to heat up everything evenly until we see the solder start flowing. And then once it starts flowing, we're going to use the heat to trail the solder all the way around both inside and outside. And I'm going to use the pick as required to make sure that everything is seated nice and flush up against the base plate. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that came out. We're inspecting it, making sure that everything is soldered flat, and we have good joints everywhere, and we do. So then we cut the excess off, and we could go to a file here to clean off the edges, but since I also have my own lapidary setup, I'm going to use my lapidary wheels, and we're going to clean off the edge as well as clean up the angled side of the triangle wire to get rid of any Mars that we put in it earlier. Okay, we're going to add one more piece of adornment, and that's this little twisted wire. Now, it's adornment, but it also serves a functional purpose. It's going to hide any gaps that are there between the triangle wire and the castellated bezel. So not only does it look pretty, but it actually serves a function. Kind of like building a house. You can get everything done, but then the trim comes in, and boy, it's amazing what you can hide with trim when you're building a house. All right, we are going to pick the tiniest piece of solder that we can find. If you use too big of a solder on wire of this size, you'll actually start to fill in some of the twists on it, so be careful with that. And we're using a smaller butane torch here because we don't need that much heat. This is so small and light. All right, we're going to flatten it up too, make sure that it fits in place, do any final forming with it, and then we're going to move on and do the final solder. Once again, I'm snipping some. This time it is easy solder because we've already used hard and medium on this piece, and I'm doing pick soldering. I can't lean the solder up against it, and that wire is very sensitive. So got to be careful. I got to heat the large masses of silver up first. I melt a little piece of solder, put it on my pick, and then when the bigger pieces of silver are ready with just the right amount of heat, it'll flow from the pick into the joint just perfectly. So learning how to do pick soldering is really crucial when you start doing little tiny work like this. It really makes your life easier. All right, there it is. Now I got to test it, make sure that it's all flat and it's connected. It is. So final step, we're going to add a jump ring. Final step for the silver part anyway. So I'm going to flatten a little edge at the top of the pendant, and then I'm going to flatten where the two sides of the jump ring come together. This is our final solder. We've already used hard, medium, and easy. So we are going to the lowest melting point here, and we're using super easy solder. Got a fairly large piece, put it where the joint of the jump ring is, and I'm just melting it into a blob at that point. And then I'm putting that blob up against the flat part that I'm filed earlier. We're going to give it a little bit more flux. And then here I got to be very, very careful. It would be real easy to melt that jump ring. It is just a little tiny piece of silver compared to this big mass. So I'm focusing my heat on the mass itself. And then the mass will transfer the heat to the solder and the jump ring and pull it together just like you saw right there. Man, it's almost magic. Next step is we're just going to add a little bit of patina to the wire we just added, as well as the inside between the bezel and the triangle wire. So we're going to just put some liver of sulfur on there. It comes in many formulas, and let that sit for 20-30 minutes, or as long as you want. And then once it's done, go ahead, rinse it off, dry it off, and we can move on. This is where things start looking really nice. We're taking it to the polishing wheel. I'm using ZAM. I started using ZAM when I got into this 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And hey, I just like it. What I don't like is it tends to leave a gummy black surface in any nooks and crannies. So I'm very careful trying to not let it get built up, but anything that does, we're going to take it over. We're going to use some Dawn dishwashing liquid, some hot water, and a toothbrush, and then we're going to clean it up. So I'm getting the front side, getting the edges, getting the back side, and nice and polished. Yeah, it looks kind of dirty there, but like I said, we're going to take it over. Toothbrush, Dawn, hot water, and we're going to clean that up. All right, here we go. Setting the stone. First, we had to hope that it still fits after all that. Yep, it does. All right, looking good so far. At first, I tried to use my burnishing tool, but when you're using 18 gauge silver, that can be a little bit tough. So I did the easy ones with the burnishing tool. I got to get myself a push rod, but for now, just a short, flathead, thick screwdriver works. Leaves a few mars in it. That wouldn't happen if I had a brass push one, but hey, I'm just going to go back, carefully protect the stone, file down the edges that I marred, and then take it back to the polisher one more time and finish it up. And there we have it. It's fairly simple, but I think it looks quite elegant. And that stone is just beautiful. So, hey, I hope you got something out of that. If you want to leave any comments for what I could do better, hey, please let me know. As always, thanks for watching, and I am enjoying retirement.